Hey guys, it's Meg, and I am here to discuss a few things about your workout number 1 reflection papers that were turned in earlier this week. I have them all graded and have given you a ton of feedback in Canvas, so make sure that you're viewing that to know where maybe you missed some points or some concepts that you didn't quite get perfectly. I wanted to discuss a few key concepts that were missed by several of you. And then these are also important because it is on your exam this week. So everyone knows our energy system ladder. We have the bottom of the ladder is fatty acid oxidation. Then we move up a rung to aerobic glycolysis, then anaerobic glycolysis, and then our ATP-PC system, or it might also be referred to as phosphagens, is that top of the ladder. So we know as intensity is going to increase, we will move our way up the ladder. And then as time or duration increases, we generally have to move down the ladder. So one of your questions in your workout feedback was about how you moved up and down the ladder throughout the workout, both in the continuous phase of exercise and then also in the interval phase. So let's just talk kind of briefly about what would have happened during those continuous phases of exercise. So we had you starting out exercise at a pretty low intensity. You were in a warm-up, and as you guys remember, we had walked over to the fitness center from the classroom. So at rest, we are hanging out in that fatty acid oxidation phase. And then as you walked over to the fitness center, you started your warm-up, you're probably still hanging out in fatty acid oxidation and maybe potentially moving up to aerobic glycolysis. Most of you should have stayed in aerobic glycolysis for the majority of that workout, with the exception of maybe that 75% and 85% 5-minute intervals that we had you do. At that point, you would have more than likely moved into anaerobic glycolysis. Now remember, we talked a little bit about anaerobic threshold last week or a couple weeks ago in class. And when we discussed that, Lisa was lecturing on chapter 4 and had mentioned that the general public, kind of the average everyday individual, will cross over from aerobic fuel systems into anaerobic fuel systems somewhere probably around 50% of their VO2 max. Now, since majority of this exercise, we were having you guys exercise at above 50%, if you were considered general public or general population and sedentary, you would have been up in that anaerobic glycolysis, which would not have been very fun to have to do for 45 minutes, because what happens in anaerobic glycolysis? Lactic acid buildup. Good job. I could hear you all answering me. So the idea here really is that you guys were probably, most of you had decent VO2 maxes. And so you were probably, your anaerobic threshold for most of you is probably somewhere 60, 70, maybe even 75%. Remember, the athletic population would be up somewhere near 80% of VO2 max before they would cross over from aerobic to anaerobic fuel sources. So the idea here really was that you should have been, during that continuous phase, moving up from fatty acid oxidation up to aerobic glycolysis, and then potentially probably even hitting anaerobic glycolysis for a majority of you, especially during the 85% 5-minute range. So remember, we always start at the bottom of the ladder during rest, and we continue to work our way up the ladder. Now, during the interval phases of exercise, we had you moving up. Hopefully, most of you gave an all-out effort. And so you were moving up probably from aerobic glycolysis during the rest or kind of easier phase up to anaerobic glycolysis, and then hitting that top of the ladder near ATP-PC or phosphagen system. Remember, the intensity was super high, so you're going to be at the top of that ladder, right? So those were kind of some of those key concepts regarding the energy systems that were maybe missed. during that workout number 1 feedback. Most of you did a really good job kind of understanding that ladder and that you were working your way up the ladder as intensity increased, and then down the ladder as the intensity decreased or as you were in your rest periods. Other big key concept that we discussed throughout the workout or the lab write-up was about metabolic calculations. Now, some of you kind of missed this section of the lab write-up, so you missed somewhere between 4 and 5 points for that. And then some of you just kind of didn't quite have it under control. So remember our metabolic calculations. To find out calories burned per minute, we're always going to take that 0.0175, multiply it by our net MET level, and then multiply that by the total body weight of your client in kilograms. So the example I'm using is you have a 200-pound client running on the treadmill. Let's say his average speed during the continuous phase of the workout was 5 miles per hour. So I'm going to take my 200 pounds and divide it by 2.2 to get 90.9 kilograms. And 5 miles per hour of running on a treadmill would be an 8.3 MET activity. And that can be found on that handout that we gave you that has your equations on one side and then the estimated energy expenditures on the other. We want to find net MET level, so we're going to take 8.3 METs, subtract our 1 MET, and get a 7.3 net MET. So now we have all of our information to be able to plug into that equation. So we'll take 0.0175, multiply that by our net MET level, which was 7.3, and then our client's body weight in kilograms, which was 90.9. Therefore, our answer is 11.6 calories burned per minute during the continuous phase of exercise. The next question that I asked you was how many calories they were burning during the intervals. So as you know, during the intervals, all of your clients were working at a higher workload in order to get their heart rate up higher and maintain it for maintain their heart rate at a higher rate for those 20 to 90 second intervals. Let's say this client in this example was running at 8.6 miles per hour. That was their average speed during the 20 and 90 second intervals. That is a 12.3 MET activity, again, determined by your in-class handout. I'm going to subtract 1 MET from my 12.3 METs in order to get my net MET level. So this should be 11.3 is my net MET level. So I have 0.0175 multiplied by 11.3 net METs multiplied by my client's kilograms, which is 90.9. That gives me a 17.9 calories burned per minute during the intervals. The point of you guys doing this math was so that you could also kind of reiterate the fact that you know a higher MET activity costs your client more. So the cost of energy is going to be greater. So me completing a 5 MET activity is going to be less of a cost than completing a 10 MET activity, right? So this was just reiterating it in calories burned per minute. So my continuous phase, my client was working out at a 7.3 net MET activity and burned 11.6 calories a minute. When they were doing interval training, we had 11.3 net MET activity, therefore burning 17.9 calories per minute. Obviously, the cost of energy or the cost to do intervals was at a higher cost, 17.9 calories per minute, versus the 11.61 calories burned at a lower net activity, a lower net MET activity that you completed during the continuous phase. So that's kind of what I wanted you to write, that you know intervals cost more. It's a higher MET level, as you can show by kilocalories burned per minute, and also the MET level being higher. Intervals will indeed burn more calories per minute because you are at a higher intensity. So that was really what we were trying to get out of that portion. And all of that we've gone over so far was included in your trainer portion of the workout. Y'all did a great job on the client section. You just had to talk about how this workout compared to what you normally do, how you felt. Did your trainer do a good job? Many of you said that you really appreciated your trainer because they helped motivate you. And that is something that you realized as a trainer that you want to continue to do for your client. So, also being the client makes you a better trainer because you realize stuff as the client. You're like, wow, I really need to make sure. I really liked how much motivation I got from my trainer. So I want to make sure I do that when I'm the trainer. So just a couple things to kind of keep in mind there. Overall, good job. If you missed some of these key points and still have questions, please just send me a message in Canvas. I am, of course, always happy to help. If you have any questions about any of your math calculations for exam number 1, also shoot me a message. But other than that, please stay up to date with the announcements. I know we've said it a million times that this is an ever-changing situation and seems to be kind of changing by the hour. So just stay up to date with announcements on Canvas. And of course, if you have any questions, let me know. I will talk to you all soon.